Caesar's legion is described by its founder Caesar as a nationalist, imperialist, totalitarian, homogenous dictatorship. Although occupying swaths of territory, the legion is comparable to a roving army who gain territory and bolster their own strength through conquest and war. In today's video, we'll be having a look at the hierarchy within the legion and the ranks of the soldiers that make up the faction itself. As mentioned earlier, the legion in its current state is a dictatorship, with Caesar himself at the helm. Although modelled on the Roman Empire, the legion is vastly different from the ancient empire of old. Unlike the empire or even the republic, the legionaries of Caesar are not free citizens of an independent nation, but instead slave soldiers. From the mightiest legate to the most recently conscripted legionary tribal, each individual has no value beyond his utility to the state, whether as an instrument of war or production. Caesar therefore is not only the leader of the legion or the commander-in-chief of its forces. Caesar is the state, and it is led by his will and his will alone. However, although power is centralized in the hands of Caesar, he is assisted in the governance of his empire and the administration of his army by his highest level commanders. There are three branches to the legion's military hierarchy that are independent from one another, yet all answerable to Caesar. The big three being the Praetorian Guard, led by Lucius, the army of the Legionaries itself, led by Legate Linnaeus, and the Frumentarii, led by Vulpes and Coulter. Starting from those closest to Caesar, we have the Praetorian Guard. In ancient Rome, Praetorians held the role of bodyguards for the emperor, and given the legion was modelled after the Romans, you can guess what the Praetorians' role is. Members of the Praetorian Guard are the absolute finest of Caesar's troops within the legion. Each member is handpicked by Caesar himself, as he seeks only the strongest and most worthy to be entrusted for his safety. As such, the qualifications to become one are quite intense. As a legionary, each Praetorian needs to have served long enough, survived every battle, and personally killed enough opponents to even be considered. While most legionaries would then be promoted to Centurion, these individuals are chosen by Caesar to serve in his guard. They then have to pick a current member of the Praetorian Guard, who they believe to be the weakest, and challenge them to an unarmed duel to the death. If they are the victor, they assume the role of the vanquished. Those that die are marked as unfit for the glory of serving in Caesar's entourage. Caesar emphasizes that this is to ensure his bodyguards never become complacent in their training and to ensure that only the strongest may retain their role within the guard. Praetorians are unique from the rest of the legion by their uniform and fighting style. Each possess sunglasses and spiked gel haircuts, which set them apart from the austere style of the rank-and-file legionaries. As stated by their head of guard, Lucius, Praetorians embody the martial values taught by Caesar and fight almost exclusively with their fists. As explained, an NCR trooper will need a weapon to fight, whereas a Praetorian is always ready for combat. Their unarmed abilities are heavily augmented by the usage of ballistic fists, which allow them to deal devastating amounts of damage. In terms of their hierarchy, Praetorians are Caesar's direct bodyguards and as such report to him. However, it is important to note that the Praetorians can be seen protecting Legatus Linnaeus in his camp, given his role as the second in command of the legion. Their status is therefore interchangeable with the royal guards throughout history, where they're utilised to not only protect their ruler, but also senior members of the government or even the ruler's family. The other branch of the legion's military is the intelligence corps, the Frumentarii. Led by Vulpes and Coulter, Frumentarii are the spies and assassins of the legion. They are handpicked by Caesar to serve in the elite unit similar to the Praetorian Guard. However, Frumentarii are chosen for reasons other than great strength in combat. Although respected within the legion, Frumentarii differ greatly from the rank-and-file troops who were trained to have independent thought squashed from their mind. Caesar explains that Vulpes was chosen for the Frumentarii given the fact that he had broken ranks in the midst of a battle to expose a hole in the enemy's defences. This in turn led to the capture of their chieftain and the winning of the battle. However, despite this, his Centurion wanted to crucify Vulpes for disobeying his orders, noting that legionaries are meant to obey and serve rather than formulate their own plans. Caesar therefore selected him for the role to make use of his talents. Frumentarii are therefore dedicated to handling tasks beyond the scope of the common soldier. Duties are a fairly broad scope, ranging from infiltration and assassinations. Picus is an undercover Frumentarii who has managed to reach the role of captain within the NCR, establishing himself within the centre of operations for the NCR army in the Mojave. Cato Hostilius formulates the plan to assassinate President Kimball, and does the deed himself in the event that the Curia aligns with the NCR. They are also utilised for dramatic atrocities to break the spirit of the enemy. An example of this can be seen from Volpes destroying the NCR outpost at Camp Searchlight by exposing them to atomic waste found in the pre-war town. The main noticeable difference is that the Frumentarii seemingly have more personality than the standard legionary. They seem to speak in regular accents compared to the bookish tone of most legion soldiers, and are comfortable being exposed to ideas that may shock and dismay the regular legionaries. As an example, Picus had joined the NCR army 5 years prior to the events in New Vegas. He lived and fought alongside Republic troops, led them in battle, and no doubt would have heard troopers state that Caesar is not a god. However, he retained his faith in the legion, espousing the Frumentari's ideals of operating behind enemy lines for extended periods without becoming sullied. The last role that the Frumentarii commonly undertake is that of diplomacy, or at least their version of it. The legion brutally subjugates any tribes or groups it comes across, destroying those that won't bow to the will of the bull. However, they often will initially make friendly contact with tribal groups in order to get them on side, whether it be for uniting against a common enemy or just to gain their trust. They will then turn against them at a more convenient time later. The Frumentarii are essentially one of the most interesting roles within the legion. Its members are able to hold the duality of honouring the principles of the legion while also being able to understand the culture and worldview of factions outside in the wasteland. Although the Praetorians and Frumentarii are part of Caesar's legion, I'd figured I'd distinguish the full army itself as the legion. These direct forces are led by the second in command of the legion, Legatus Linnaeus. Described as the monster of the East, Linnaeus is truly answerable to Caesar and Caesar alone. He is spoken of almost as a living myth, a man whose past is shrouded in mystery, who has become the living will of the legion itself. For the purpose of explaining the rank and roles of legion army proper, we'll be going in the reverse order and first taking a look at the soldiers at the bottom of the hierarchy. The common foot soldier within Caesar's legion are their legionaries. A legionary begins their life within the legion via one of three methods. They're either born into it, come from a subjugated tribe that joined the legion, or are identified as a physically fit slave and pressed into their ranks. After passing and surviving their grueling training process, a soldier is designated as a recruit legionary. Having been indoctrinated to serve the will of the legion, the recruit seeks to embody the martial values espoused by its founder. In Caesar's mind, reliance on advanced technology was what caused the downfall of mankind so many years in the past. A man who relies purely on advanced weaponry can only be as strong as the weapons allow him to be. If he is stripped of these, he is nothing. In contrast, a legionary is strong no matter what the circumstances or weaponry. The legion therefore does its best to not rely on technology, but entrust it only to those who have shown themselves to be capable fighters without it. Recruits therefore are provided only the most basic of weapons, typically armed with only a makeshift machete, tribal throwing spears, and whatever guns they were able to find. Their armour provides minimal protection, as like most legion armour, it's made from repurposed sports equipment, consisting of a football player's protective shoulder and chest pads, while reinforced with additional leather padding and worn over a baseball catcher's vest. The battle doctrine for a recruit is that they are marched into the front lines of an engagement. They are launched against their enemies, wading through gunfire and explosions to close the gap and fall upon them with their blades. An enemy is either defeated via the first wave of recruits, or is exhausted enough that they will fall to the second wave of more experienced soldiers. Survival rates for recruit legionaries are therefore very low. They're instructed to give their life on the battlefield, and if captured by the enemy, will choose to slit their own throats rather than be made a hostage. However, if a recruit does show promise and continues to survive in battle, he may find himself earning a promotion to a prime legionary. Prime legionaries are the next step on the ladder for legion soldiers. Given that they have survived many battles and conquered many enemies, primes are entrusted with more advanced equipment and armour. Prime legionaries are most likely to be children born into the legion or subjugated tribals, as they typically come from a battle-hardened background without the comforts of modern luxuries. While still carrying their trusty machetes, prime legionaries are usually armed with hunting rifles, being trusted to eliminate the dissolute from a distance. Prime legionaries are usually located within legion bases themselves, protecting higher profile targets such as the Fort, Cottonwood Cove, or Nelson. However, they can also be found in patrols wandering the Mojave, bringing the wrath of Kaiser to any profligate that they may find. While still outfitted in repurposed sporting gear, primes are offered slightly better protection than recruits. They're also distinguishable from them by the crimson in their armour, as well as their unique helmets. In battle, legionary primes will make up the second wave of the approaching legion force. If the first wave of recruits were unable to overcome the enemy, primes will be sent in afterwards to do the job. Survival in a multitude of conflicts will earn the prime legionary the honour of being marked a veteran. Veteran legionaries are the highest of legionary soldiers. Given the nature of their status, they are the most well-equipped and most highly experienced of the common foot soldiers in Caesar's legion. In comparison to the primes, veteran armour is supplemented with additional padding and wrapping to protect from ballistic fire, enhancing their survivability. They are also outfitted with higher class in weaponry, equipped with power fists for close combat and revolvers or submachine guns for range combat. Veterans are the long-termers for the legion military class. They are used in battle when both waves of the recruits and primes have been ineffective in battle, but can be seen peppered alongside their lower class brothers in order to boost morale. Some veterans are seen to be in a league of their own, as Chief Hadlin speaks of Caesar's personal veteran squad made up from the Painted Rock and Red Oaky Centurion tribe. Essentially, veteran troops are brought into battle if there's an escalation in the conflict, or if a location or target needs to be neutralized as quickly as possible. In the legion's hierarchy, the next step above a legionary would be the role of a Decanus. The Decanus, or plural term Decani, can be considered the legion's officer corps, as they are individuals that have been marked as possessing both the combat ability to survive, but also leadership capabilities. Decani are given command of a squad, or contubernium, of 8 legionaries to lead in battle. Decani are able to be distinguished by their distinctive helmets, which are plumaged with feathers to denote their role and allow them to be visible by their troops. However, in their own command structure, Decani possess a similar hierarchy to legionaries. A recruit Decanus is comparable to a sergeant, typically seen in the field leading their troops. As an example, Dead Sea is a recruit Decanus who captured Nelson. Further up the line are prime Decani, who are better equipped with weaponry and armour. Primes are often seen as either the head of legion camps or assistants to a centurion. Decanus Severus is seen as the quartermaster for Cottonwood Cove, arranging patrols, shoring up stores of weapon and supplies, and carrying out the orders of Centurion Aurelius to their troops. The final step is to be a veteran Decanus. Similar to veteran legionaries, these Decani are few and far between, but are the very best of the lower rank officers, being comparable to a lieutenant. Their experience in battle and administration means that most are stone's throws away from escalating to one of the highest levels within the legion, a centurion. Centurions are seen as the pinnacle of the legion military hierarchy. The only next step up would be a legate, and these are few and far between. In order to become a centurion, a Decanus must have demonstrated years of service to Caesar and shown their capabilities in combat. Their armour reflects the journey Centurion has gone through to reach this height, a mismatch of pieces from the legion's foes. NCR Rangers, Brotherhood Paladins, even Supermutants can be seen cobbled together in their armour. Centurions serve as field commanders during major operations. Each centurion typically holds command over a centuria of 80 or so men, with at least 8 Decani officers reporting directly to them. A real-world equivalent would be a captain, with higher-ranking centurions being akin to a colonel. The weapons afforded to centurions are some of the most advanced in the legion, often better than those granted to the NCR. Gone are the simple machetes for close combat. Instead, thermic lances or super sledge augment the centurion's strength. However, they're also seen with marksman carbines or anti-material rifles, usually only seen on NCR veteran rangers. Centurions, however, are generally kept away from danger due to the strategic value of each one. Outside of battle, centurions act as administrators of legion camps with the assistance of their Decanus. Aurelius the Phoenix commands the outpost at Cottonwood Cove, directing his forces and fortifying the beachhead across the Colorado River for the legion. Centurions are the greatest commanders in the legion, but even they report to, and fear, those further up the chain of command. Caesar states that when a centurion fails in his duty, he is beaten to death in front of his troops by a legatus, or legate. A legate is the pinnacle of service within the legion's military. Similar to a Praetorian Guard or Frumentarii, a legate is directly appointed by Caesar himself. Although comparable to a general, it is important to note that there are evidently varying levels of legati within the legion's hierarchy. Legatus Linnaeus is the current second in command of the legion and could be considered a field marshal or 5-star general. However, Caesar does indicate that there are other legates within the legion, noting that he sends Linnaeus to initiate decimatio upon them and their troops should they monumentally fail in their service to Caesar. No other legates are ever seen in-game, the hypothesis being that their experience would mean they're trusted to run the fiefdoms of the legion in Arizona and Utah, while the main army is stationed in Nevada. Linnaeus himself is considered a living myth, a literal weapon of the legion, spoken of fervently, that will be set loose upon the dissolute. He is described as the greatest of battlefield commanders, and from discussions is seen to be extremely capable in strategic and military thought. Yet for all his mythology, it's important to note that legatus, or legate, is just a title, and Linnaeus is the latest to occupy its position. Outside of this direct military hierarchy, there are a multitude of other roles fulfilled within the legion. Although being a society made up of an army, there do exist roles within the command structure that aren't necessarily purely combat aligned. A role designated as Vexillarius typically sits within the structure of veteran, prime, and recruit legionaries. However, they are a mark above in experience and honour, and have been chosen as a standard bearer to display the bull of the legion. Vexillariuses are used as a rallying point for legion troops in the heat of battle, but also as a morale boost for all who fight beneath Caesar's banner. Given their importance, they are rarely seen on the front lines and will typically be accompanied by a large amount of soldiers. They are afforded the very best of legion firearms, armour, and wear a distinctive dog's head helmet to mark them above the average legion troop. Explorers also sit in the command structure of legionaries. However, rather than direct combat in battle, they're used to screen legion advances by scoping out enemy troop positions. They're also used as messengers in battles, relaying command to legion troops or ferrying orders from one outpost to another. Outside of this, explorers are used to survey land and tribes in anticipation for the main bulk of legion forces' arrivals. It was explorers who first sighted the lights of Vegas and Hoover Dam. They've also located vaults in pre-war buildings that may be of use to the legion. Explorers are outfitted for mobility and only wear modest armour, but do have access to firearms such as hunting rifles. Their distinct hoods protect them from the sun as they roam the wasteland for any and all who may oppose or be brought to obey Caesar's will. Outside of this, legionaries that do display certain aptitude in specific areas will be removed from direct combat roles and assigned new designations in their service. For example, legionaries that show skill in the maintenance and servicing of weapons are described as blacksmiths. Kept away from the main conflict, they're typically seen within legion camps, sharpening blades or cleaning guns to ensure their weapons are ready to bring the wrath of Mars to non-believers. Houndmasters are legionaries who are able to train and breed legion mongrels for war. These individuals primarily come from tribals from the Denver region, most notably the Hangdog tribe, as they had a natural affinity for the animals and have transferred their skill into service within the legion. Those that have the ability to communicate and train newly acquired tribals or children are given the role of instructor. Instructors are brutal taskmasters who shape legionaries through the harshest of methods, threatening them with death if they fail in their duties. It is the instructors who indoctrinate the newly acquired subjects into the cult of Mars and the purity of serving in the legion. The remaining areas are a little hard to define in their exact location on the legion's hierarchy, as they fulfill semi-civilian, or at least not combat roles at all, within the legion. A cursor appears to be a role filled by Lucullus, who transports legion forces to their bases across the Colorado River via barge. Slave masters are also a highly prestigious role within the legion, given the fact their entire society is built on the backs of slavery. Slave masters appear to be outside of the usual legion command, however, as although Canyon Runner can be found in Cottonwood Cove, it does not appear that he's under orders from Aurelius of Phoenix. Slave masters believe that their role is ultimately one of good, as they hold all non-legion members to be dissolute, lacking in honour and morality. To enslave them is to save them, to give them purpose by upholding the virtues of a slave, honestus, industria, prudentia. The final role within the legion military hierarchy is one not seen at all, but read about, consisting of the office of consul. The only identified consul is a man by the name of Licinius Crassus, who heads the consul officiorum ad famulatus, translated to Secretary of Slavery Affairs. As the name suggests, this branch of the legion is responsible for the acquisition and purchase of slaves. What is interesting is that the very office of Consul is traditionally a high-level, non-military rank, and that the office itself is willing to do business with non-Legion members. This is evident from the bill of sale given to Jeannie May Crawford after selling Carla Boone to the Legion, the contents of which dictate that payment will be made upon presenting said bill to the office. While obviously an immoral agency, the document offers an insight into the unique business operandi of the Legion, given the fact that it simultaneously is a guarantee of safety for the seller, as well for payment to be rendered. The final role within the Legion military hierarchy is of course Caesar himself, born Edward Sallow. Although occupied only by its founder, Caesar is technically a title rather than a name. In the event that Edward does die, the title passes onwards to Linnaeus, who assumes command of the Legion as its new Caesar, the supreme commander of the Legion who holds sway over the entire society. As stated before, they live to serve the state, and Caesar himself is the state. Each and every member of the Legion is ultimately a slave to their will and must dedicate their lives to perpetuating his glory. And this has been every identified rank and role within the military hierarchy of Caesar's Legion. I hope you've enjoyed the video as much as I've enjoyed making it, and if you'd like to see more content, you know what to do.